This is a summary of best and worst practices in project management based on both personal experience as a consultant to organizations and the literature. So I will go over it fairly quickly. Not all of what's in here necessarily apply to your own personal situation, but I'm sure that some do. So first, in general, these are the most common areas for problem areas for project managers. Arbitrary deadlines, budgets, and specs. Management decides when things are due, how much money we can spend on doing it, and the level of quality, but without necessarily having given much thought as to why that's the case. Then pressure not to plan in the sense of get on with the work. Don't spend too much time up front trying to plan the work. Often there is no reward for teamwork, very little organizational support for the team. Uh, Taking risk or being creative is not encouraged, and upper management meddling and micromanaging. And many of your comments on the chat, the weekly chats show that this is something that some of you have to deal with fairly regularly. So project deadlines, worst practices is, they're listed here. I'm not going to go over all those elements. Things like using unrealistic deadlines to pressure the team, when that's done as a practice, then it loses credibility very quickly. And the best practices is to stay open as long as you can before you commit to particular deadlines. When the more you're able to stay open, the more you can learn as to what's realistic and possible. In terms of budget, same thing. Uh, don't base your projects strictly on what we can afford. Base it on what needs to be done, and then make adjustments. Uh, Project specs, again, not necessarily something that applies to many of you, but the best practices is about making sure that what you can deliver matches up with what is expected by whoever is commissioning the project, whether it's your management, whether it's your stakeholders, whatever. Reward for teamwork. This is a challenge. Find ways to provide incentives for the team to work as a whole, and find ways to support teamwork as opposed to focusing on individual performance. Develop a process for the team to work together. We talked about that quite a bit. Again, the value of what we call a core team, which is a cohesive team, is that it really produces more effective work. About core teams, that may not necessarily apply to many of you, because this is really more in organization where there are many projects going on at the same time, and then team members being pulled from one project to another, so that the core team of a given project does not stay together long enough, is not stable. So, but if you are in that situation, try and make sure that your teams stay together as long as possible for the life of the project, whenever possible. Not always possible, but when it is, it really improves the quality of the work. Creativity, always important to encourage it. And if you encourage creativity, you have to be prepared to live with mistakes and failures, but learn from them. And finally, meddling by upper management. The bad things is when upper management meddles, when they always try to sort of step in to figure out what's going on. Best practice is to have a structured process of having regular reports, feedback, and the important thing is the second bullet here, encouraging early warnings on potential problems. It's always good when you see a problem coming to share that information and not hope that you will solve it and therefore not have to uh, not have to get people worried about what that problem might be. Okay, so those are pretty straightforward comments, and I hope they help you with your work.